Right, so what version of the script am I on now? I think this is like the third or fourth time I've completely rewritten Edelweiss. Ah, sorry, I didn't see you there. My name is Jaydreamer and welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of a series of videos I'm calling Pokemon Edelweiss, a Pokemon fan region set inside the country of Portugal, also known as the Delwis region. And today we're going to be introducing the first batch of new Pokemon, or Fakemon, that will feature within this new region. A lot of this dex is based off Portuguese fauna or legends, and it's really been a blast to research and develop these concepts throughout the years, and I'm even more excited that I finally get to show them off. Before we begin, I'd like to take some time to explain the gimmick I introduced inside of Pokemon Lavender. That is, the existence of 2 brand new types, which will also be reappearing here. First, the light type is representative of all things metaphorically light and or divine. Pokemon with this type have a strong sense of justice, and will often be seen as heroic or holy. Older Pokemon with this type include Absol, Gallade, Togepi, and even Shaman. Light types are strong against Ghost, Dark, and Poison, but are weak to Dark and Dragon. It also resists Enigma. Speaking of which, the Enigma type, which represents things beyond comprehension, the strange and extraterrestrial. Though, do be warned that this doesn't encompass the Ultra Beasts, besides circuitry. These Pokemon are truly something else. Old Pokemon with this type include Baltoy, Stonjourner, Dusknoir, and even Necrozma. Enigma is strong against Electric, but is weak to Psychic and Ghost. It also resists normal and light types. If you want to see more of these types, Delwis is actually part of a bigger project known as Euroverse, which is a project that features several regions that are all set inside of Europe. Delwis is the first video of many that will be part of this project. So once Delwis is completed, I hope you look forward to seeing some of that happen in the future. Now that's established, let's start off the Pokedex with your first partner Pokemon within the Delwis region, also known as your starter Pokemon. If you've seen Lavender, the region project I worked on last year, you'd know that there I made the starters have both a theme and have a secondary type triangle. So here the theme is, as seen on TV. It's a bit of a strange concept when it's done on its own, but I promise it's going to make for some interesting designs. And the type triangle, it's going to be flying, fighting, and ice. So first, here's Yixtuff, the tiny dino Pokemon, and the grass type starter for the region. It is fluffy but grows flustered if its feathers are dirtied. It has adapted to colder climates and is an avid lover of fruits and berries. The theming has yet to be introduced, but we'll get to it eventually. Yixtuff is based upon a Cordyceps, a type of dinosaur similar to a velociraptor that's bird-like with a feathered tail. Its name comes from Yixian, a settlement in China where many Cordyceps fossils have been uncovered. Tuff, a rock formed from volcanic ash, and tough, as in strong. Yixtuff evolves into Terraskid, the skater Pokemon, who gains the ice typing. Having adapted to colder climates, it traverses ice by skating and performing aerial moves that have inspired many human figure skaters. So here's the first application of the theming. Yixtuff's line is based upon sports broadcasts, specifically figure skating. It creates skates out of ice in order to glide with ease across snowy landscapes. Oh, and its name comes from Cordyceps, skid, like you would do upon ice, and kid, since it's still young. And finally, Terraskid evolves into Criscaldi, the Ice Wing Pokemon. It defends itself by covering its wings in hard ice, which is also used to deliver powerful blows that can break through concrete. This also describes its signature move very well, Icicle Wing, a physical ice-type move that never misses. Its name comes from Crystal and Cordyceps. Pretty simple. Moving on to the Fire-type starter now, Calstro, the fluffy Pokemon. It has a fiery temper and grows frustrated due to the hair covering its eyes. It lashes out at strangers, but has a kind heart deep down. I'll explain the theming later, but Calstro does actually fit into the Chinese zodiac theory, albeit unintentionally, since Calstro is an ox. But it's also a bull. It takes inspiration from the running of the bulls event that happens in both Spain and Portugal. Similar to another bull Pokemon, I know, but Calstro's name comes from calf, as in a baby cow, and Maestro. Not a music maestro. Maestro is the title a matador earns after killing the bull. On the topic of bullfighting, I apologize for what comes next. Ensimic, a fire and fighting type! Come on guys, it's been 4 generations since the last one, I think I can get away with it. Ensimic is the brave Pokemon. They are naturally born fighters and never shy away from a challenge. Underneath their rugged exterior is a kind soul. Not only are they based upon the somewhat controversial act of bullfighting, but they're also based upon something more PG. Cartoons! Ensimic is based upon superhero archetypes seen within kids' cartoons, with the cockiness and bravado to match. Ensimic's name comes from Encierro, the Spanish name for the running of the bulls event, and Mickey, the name of a young bull in Australian terms. Ensimic finally evolves into Keratiero, the valiant Pokemon. Keratiero is feisty and headstrong, and is fueled with an intense desire for justice. It charges with relentless and unwavering blows. Speaking of unwavering blows, its signature move could be classed as just that. Blind Eye, a fighting type move that acts last but burns any opponent that makes contact while the move is charging. Caratiero's name comes from keratin, the material its horns are made of, and torero, the Portuguese term for a matador. And now for the final starter of our trio, Bobat, the lovable water flying type bubble Pokemon. Bobat is a happy-go-lucky Pokemon who never shies away from being clean and fresh. The soap it produces is used in all sorts of cleaning products. I can actually talk about the theming straight away. Yikstuff and Calstro represent two types of TV shows, but Bobat, he represents the adverts. I'd imagine there's an in-universe soap brand that uses Bobat and the Evos as a mascot. Bobat is also quite obviously a bat having a bubble bath, and oh look, he even has a rubber Psyducky. Bobat's name simply comes from bubble and bat. Let's make this snappy. Bobat evolves into Chalava, the soap Pokemon. Its attacks are powerful as the sticky bubbles it produces can easily ensnare a foe. It loves splashing around both in and out of battle. It's like an alternate universe version of Froakie where the bubble gimmick actually stayed throughout. This Pokemon definitely learns the move Cotton Spore. Its name comes from Chiroptera, the scientific order bats are within, and lava, the frothy bubbles that soap creates. Chalava evolves finally into Patadrench, the soaked Pokemon. Patadrench are grumpy and bitter, especially when their several unique cleaning routines are interrupted. It hates being made fun of. And hey look, the Psyducky evolved into a Golducky. Though he no longer plays with it like he used to. He's too jaded to truly enjoy baths anymore. Patadrench is, well, an old man. The get off my lawn type of old man too. Its name comes from Passagium, the name for the membrane that bat wings are made of, and drench, like with water. It'll also drench you with its signature move, Lava Splash, which both deals damage and has a chance to harshly lower the target's speed. That's all the starters, so now let's get into some of the more common Pokemon in the region. Let's start with Podafluff, the chipper Pokemon, a normal and fairy type. Podafluff are popular pets in the Delwis region due to their fluffy coats and playfulness. The coat needs to be groomed often to make sure it doesn't get damaged. Podafluff is based upon a Portuguese dog breed, that being the Podengo, but its design also takes inspiration from feather boas, hence why this Pokemon is so prim and proper. Its name comes from Podengo and Fluff. And Podafluff evolves into Fevengo, the pampered Pokemon. It tricks people by alluring them in with its soft fur and strikes painfully when their guard drops. So now it's a bit of a trickster, really playing upon the whole idea of the fairy typing, where they're playful and mischievous. And Fevengo's name comes from feather, like a feather boa, and Podengo, again the type of dog it is. Next up we have the regional rodent, that being Aquol, the water mouse Pokemon, a pure water type. Aquol are adept at digging holes, and will leave their complicated burrows all over both riverbanks and the towns humans inhabit. So of course this Pokemon learns many ground type moves, since it's based upon a water vole, which likes to burrow near riverbeds. Other than that, I just wanted to design something round and cute. Its name comes from aqua, like water, and vole. And Aquol evolves into Hydrol. It hides away from any other Pokemon, preferring to keep to itself. It is meek and shy and will run away from battle at the first opportunity. Upon evolution, it becomes quite the scaredy cat, though rumours go that when faced with danger it can't run from, it'll become quite aggressive. Hydrol also takes on a few features of a weasel, becoming taller and much more fluffier. Its name comes from the prefix hydro, referring to water, and again, vole. Next, let's talk about the original birds, starting with Prinfowl, the luck Pokemon, a water and fairy type, so it sticks to solid ground until it's strong enough to swim. This is based upon a swan, which becomes more obvious in the evolutions. The colour scheme of both the regular form and its shiny is also intentional, which becomes very obvious in the evolutions. I wonder if you can guess what it's referencing. Anyway, it's also based upon Swan Lake, the story of a beautiful princess turning into a swan. That's why its name comes from princess and fowl, like a bird. And it evolves into Diafowl, the regal Pokemon. It races other water types, but employs devious tactics to distract its opponent to snag a win, which it loves to boast about. So now its looks have made it quite a bit cocky, and its final evolution is even more vain and self-obsessed. There's been an interesting study into this Pokemon, in fact. Despite its gender ratio being 50-50, there's odd occasions where female Diafowl will seemingly be more comfortable presenting themselves as male Diafowl, and vice versa, making these Pokemon the only known ones to have some sense of gender fluidity. Oh, and Diafowl's name comes from diamond, a jewel that's associated with rich, and fowl. And finally, it evolves into Tearegal, the snooty Pokemon. Stuck up and snobbish, this Pokemon looks down upon any Pokemon weaker than it, and it will often gang up on them with others of its kind. Which is pretty mean, all things considered. It holds other Pokemon to the standard it sets itself. And I mentioned the colour scheme earlier. That, and the mention of gender fluidity, is because Tearegal's wings represent the trans pride flag, which I thought would be fun to throw into a Pokemon design, mostly because I think the colour scheme is awesome. And the shiny represents the asexual flag, another flag I enjoy the colour scheme of. Tearegal's name comes from tiara and regal. Have I scared off the transphobes now? Cool, because that's not even the start of the LGBT representation in this project. You know, once I got a comment saying I'm making Pokemon political by involving representation of this kind, but you know what? This is my passion project, so I can do whatever I like. Sorry for the sudden tangent, let's get back into talking about the dex. Berrybud, the evergreen Pokemon, a pure grass type. Berrybud is nicknamed the Forest Guide, as it will not hesitate to lead lost trainers away from danger. It shares berries with those it is close to. Berrybud is based upon hawthorn berries, red berries resident to Britain where I live. And yes, this is the Portugal region, but I wanted to include some concepts that are closer to home. This guy is also based upon something from my childhood, this one really specific Flash game called Interactive Buddy, which its proportions are inspired by. It's also got a bit of a superhero motif with its little leaf cape, which is more obvious in the evolution. Berrybud's name comes from berry and buddy, but also from bud, like a flower. And its evolution, Amiforn, gains the electric typing upon evolution, becoming the skater Pokemon. This Pokemon loves to race and loves skating around on its wheel-like appendages. It can reach speeds of up to 40 miles per hour while travelling on a flat surface. So not only is it a blazing fast superhero like The Flash, it's also a roller skater, not unlike another Flash game of my childhood, the Run series. Also, in concept, I think grass and electric is a really interesting combination, so that's why I gave it to Amiforn. Its name comes from amigo, which is Portuguese for friend, and hawthorn, like the berries it's based on. Moving on to another Pokemon inspired by me living in Britain, it's Sapslap, the grass-type root Pokemon. Their roots can grow to upstate pathways. If you step on one of these roots, prepare to be swarmed by an angry group of them. These guys are based upon tree roots, but also octopi. There are many limbs now being made of roots. This, Berrybud, and one other were all inspired by a walk I went on during 2020 lockdown, so real life can now be listed as one of my sources. Sapslap's name comes from sap and slap, which it can do through the use of moves like Vine Whip. Sapslap evolves into Storypie, the tangled Pokemon. An old folktale states that if you find yourself lost, Storypie will point you in the right direction. They are good friends with Berrybud. So they're like nature's signposts, being very docile and friendly. That friendliness won't last forever though. Storypie's name comes from understory, meaning below the canopy, and octopi, the thing it resembles. Storypie's final evolution is the grass and fighting type Arbekin, the mimic Pokemon. It uses camouflage to blend in with its natural surroundings. They populate areas that have recently been destroyed by forest fires. Arbekin disguises itself as a tree in order to blend in. If its facade ever falls, get ready for a fight! The root system it's been growing now gives it an untapped strength. A strength that's, well, imagine what being hit by a tree feels like. Arbekin's name comes from arbor, which is Latin for tree, and mannequin, since it's good at pretending to look like something it's not. Now for number 22, the Crowdable line. They're bug and grind types, and the first one is the worker Pokemon. Colonies of Crowdable work in tandem to build nests in all sorts of places, working tirelessly to serve the queen of their hive. They're based upon antlion larvae, which is simple enough, but some of the design is inspired by Parkers and the like. Yes, that image is my Parker. Anyway, Crowdable's name comes from crown and mandible, what antlions are known for having. It evolves into Larvoil, the scout Pokemon. They scout for items and food under the strict command of their leaders. Rival nests of Larvoil often get into vicious fights. Now that it's evolved, it's taking on more of a bipedal stance, becoming more alien-like as we progress. These guys are also gaining more legs. Not enough to be considered arachnids, but enough for you to go, ah. Larvoil's name comes from lava, which it is, and royal, which it also is. Yeah, sometimes the names are just really simple. Regalant's name isn't though. Larvoil evolves into this, the commander Pokemon. Regalant are harsh and unforgiving towards other members of its species, as they have to listen to its every order. Many Regalant owned by trainers are known for disobeying. Defiant and rebellious like all Pokemon should be. Just kidding. But yeah, alienness is really coming through now, as it's fully gone bipedal, despite the fact that it has 4 legs. And on the topic of the name, it originates from regal plus ant, but also includes gallant, meaning heroic. We do love double meanings. Let's move on to some more bug-type Pokemon, specifically 2 Pokemon that don't evolve, but have gimmicks to make up for it. So here's Diplor, the Justice Pokemon, and a Gnoll and bug-type. Diplor is the target of many predatory Pokemon. They make up for their small size by swarming together. And when they swarm together with their ability to fence court, they turn into their swarm form. The swarm swings with brute force, taking on the appearance of a gavel to bring justice upon those who try to prey upon them. Diplor is based upon a fly, but also on lawyers and attorneys, its swarm being shaped like a gavel, as previously mentioned. Its name comes from Diptera, the order flies are in, and law, the thing this bug abides by. And the other non-evolving bug is Hunray, a light and bug type. Its gimmick is that depending on its gender, it'll have different stats and move poles. We'll start with the stinger Pokemon, female Hunray. They constantly produce delicious honey. They are aggressive defenders of the hive and will even sacrifice their lives to protect it. And the docile Pokemon male Hunray? They act as scouts for their more aggressive female counterparts, searching out the best flower patches for their honey-making efforts. These two are based upon bumblebees, but also have a sort of medic motif to them, hence why they're the first appearance of the light typing. They make up for their small size with their loyalty and stinging power. Don't worry about them stinging you, by the way, they won't die afterwards. Hunray's name simply comes from honey and ray. Now here's a not bug type that also doesn't evolve, and I actually hinted towards this guy earlier since Poor Plastic is the third Pokemon I made during that walk. It's a normal and poison type, and it's the pollution Pokemon. Poor Plastic are an invasive species caused by the plastic pollution of Delwis' waterways, and they poison water supplies wherever they roam. They're based on litter, specifically soda bottles and cans, since its tail is made from pull tags, and it's also not a dolphin but a porpoise. Here's a fun fact, Poor Plastic was actually the first ever Pokemon I designed for the Delwis region. And remember, the Delwis region has been in the works since 2020. Ow. Poor Plastic's name comes from porpoise and plastic. Again, simple. Now for the original cat Pokemon. We actually have a catfish with Swisker, the water-type swift Pokemon. Swisker can swim up to 50 km per hour in order to chase prey or play with other members of its group. A group of Swisker is called a legion. So Swisker is a catfish, as I said, but I mean it in the literal sense too. It's part cat, part fish, and all parts adorable. Another round Pokemon to add to the pile. Swisker's name comes from swift, swim, and whisker, like a cat. Funnily enough, its ability is Swift Swim. It evolves into the Water Dark type Meow, the knife Pokemon. Using its heightened senses, it can track down any prey that dares to enter its territory in a matter of seconds. It takes one strike, it flies like a dart, Delwis means I won't release Ace of Hearts. I will be surprised if you get that reference. Anyway, Meow is now more like an actual catfish, but also resembles a shark or an eel. Its name comes from menace and meow. Now, as is customary for the collection of fan regions known as the Ascosverse, I really love regional variants, so Delwis is getting some too, starting off with Delwisan Mantike, who is now ground and electric. Beach Mantike developed electric powers in order to survive on land. Many Joltik end up attached to this Pokemon, but it bears them no mind. And said Joltik can be seen attached to its underfin, almost like armpit hair. It even turns shiny in Mantike shiny, so you're technically getting two shinies for the price of one. Delwisan Mantike is based upon a spotted stingray, which lays low at the ocean floor, shocking unaware prey. Instead of having a relationship with Remoraid like normal, Mantike is paired up with a Joltik instead. When a Mantine levels up with a Joltik in the party, it becomes Delwisan Mantine, the Stinger Pokemon. Annual gatherings of Mantine happen under electrical pylons, which act as their breeding grounds. The flock of Joltik it now watches over is joined by a Galvantula hidden on its back. Yes, you heard me right. Unseen in this image, a Galvantula travels alongside Mantine too. It also appears within Mantine's new signature move, Power Outage, a physical electric type move. A Joltik is fired off the Mantine, sapping energy from the target. Sometimes Galvantula will fall instead, dealing extra damage. They live in a mutually beneficial relationship. Mantine finds the Galvantula and its children food, and in return they protect it from any attackers. Next, let's talk about Delwisan Hoothoot, the all-nighter Pokemon, now a steel and flying type. Hoothoot in the Delwis region are rumoured to never sleep, and this strange phenomenon has caused different groups to be awake at certain times. Its design takes inspiration from sundials, clocks, and gears, and its red coat lets it attack under the cover of sunsets. Its ability Timekeeper makes it so that moves that take 2 turns to execute will happen instantaneously, which includes moves like Fly, Razor Wind, and Sky Attack. Hoothoot evolves until Delwisan Noctowl, the clock Pokemon. They awaken during the afternoon, attacking during the poor visibility of sunsets. They are ruthless, slicing up foes with their razor-sharp wings. Unfortunately, being a steel type means that they're also targeted by Tinkaton now, alongside Corviknight, so the Squawkabilly Taxi is still employed over in Delwis. Tinkaton really is living its best life. Our next original variant is something returning fans will enjoy, since it's actually a original variant of one of my pre-existing Fakemon. Specifically, it's of Kamause from the Ascos region, which was featured inside of Pokemon Lavender. So here we now have Delwisan Kamause, the delinquent Pokemon, and a dark and normal type. Upon settling into new territories, it will resort to cheap tactics and dirty tricks to ensure no one dares enter its territory. They enjoy lurking around abandoned buildings. Kamause's base form is a chimera of a camel and a mouse, but here Kamause also gets the added traits of being a demon, with the red horns and pitchfork-shaped tail. It's a lot more aggressive than its Asconian counterpart, but they're favoured among gangs and the like. Kamau's evolution is Delwis in Calmera, now a dark and fighting type. It is known as a savage brute who attacks anyone who looks at it the wrong way. It can deliver bites that can shatter bones. Now it's had the traits of a goat and a dragon added, since Calmera is a chimera, which usually presents as a fusion of a lion, a goat, and a snake. Speaking of the snake, regular Calmera has a tail that resembles an Ekans, but here, Delwis in Calmera's tail resembles a Pokemon we haven't actually met yet. On top of all of that, there's also some symbolism here. Goats are usually associated with Baphomet, a ghost-like being that sometimes represents the devil itself. And there's also the snake, which Lucifer famously shapeshifted into in order to convince Eve into a life of sin. Oh, and Calmera's name comes from camel and chimera. Before I introduce you to the Pokemon that's on Calmera's tail, let's first talk about Haycare, the normal and ghost-type straw Pokemon. It weaves disturbing puppets made of straw and hay to scare away predators. The pin on its back is said to be used to inflict curses. This little guy is based upon scarecrows, puppets, and most importantly, voodoo dolls, the big pin stuck in its back being the indication of this. Although it may be made of straw, this doesn't make it a grass type. Maybe it's due to the spectral energy that's keeping it intact. Haycare's name comes from hay, daycare, and scare. It evolves into Hydancy, the lurker Pokemon. It loves to play hide and seek, but due to how scary it is, nobody ever seems to want to play with it. Their sworn enemy is Murkrow. The Scarecrow motif is more obvious here, and the Murkrow tidbit plays upon that. Hydancy scares away every Pokemon except Murkrow, who will always be a nuisance to it. Hydancy's name is supposed to sound like hide and seek, the thing it loves to do, but the name also comes from Mr. Hyde, the alter ego of Dr. Jekyll known for his abhorrent acts and desires. Let's pick up where we left off, with Delwis and Ekans, who is now a poison and psychic type. Ekans in the Delwis regions secrete hallucinogenic gases from their mouths to ward off predators, causing them to go into a state of confusion. Its signature ability is one that appeared previously in Lavender, being Iridescent, which is a special attack version of Intimidate. Delwis and Ekans is based upon rattlesnakes right now, but when it evolves into Delwis and Arbok, it's also based upon optical illusions. It's said that staring into the spiral on Arbok's stomach for too long can put even the most strong-minded individuals into a mindless trance. Delwis and Arbok is what Calmera's tail looks like, which I think is a fun homage towards the original Fakemon. Arbok itself is said to be able to change the speed at which the pattern spins, lulling its prey so it can swallow it whole. Hey, this video is getting a bit long, so let's finish off this section with our resident Pikachu clone. Worgen, the electric cat Pokemon. It climbs far up trees in order to scout out its surroundings. It delivers electrical blows with its strong paws. Despite me saying it's a cat, it's actually a genet. That is a creature that looks similar to a lemur or a ferret. And it's not a rodent either, since it's a vivirid, a type of mammal. Worgen has another returning ability from Lavender, Dynamo, which raises Worgen's speed upon landing a damaging electric type move. Worgen's name comes from whir, like a motor, and genet. And with that, that's all we have time for today. I hope this has been enjoyable for you all. It's, definitely different having no one to bounce this all off. What was I saying? Ah, yes. Thank you for watching, as always, and next time we'll be going through more of the Pokemon, including more of the original forms, as well as some spookier additions. That's all from me today. I'll see you next time. It's not always black and white, but your heart always knows what's right. It's not about win or lose, it's the road you choose. Let the journey begin, Pokemon.